Because you're a full-time entrepreneur right now. It's just your company, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about sort of, that the way you thought about those things, employee versus entrepreneur, and why you chose this path, and just delve into it a little bit together, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that.
I mean, you told me the story about your employment, and I sort of, I can go back and listen to that and remember, but
yeah.
Let's start with this. I mean, in your mind, since you've been in both worlds, is one path safer than the other in your mind? Is being an employee really as safe as people tend to say entrepreneurship's not as safe as being an employee? Do you agree with that, or do you think that's sort of a myth?
I disagree. I think both of them will have their own unique risk.
Yes.
And
so what is that risk on the employee side? When you were an employee, what were the risks that you felt like you were exposed to?
Well, everything is, you have that trust in your employers to run the business and make it sustainable. You're dependent on them for you to have a job.
Yeah.
And I remember before I became business savvy, financial savvy, I guess now that I think about it, I never really thought about in my head, are the board getting their accountant in place, getting their finance in place? Are they running smoothly?
It was just assumed, right? You just kind of assumed all these things that a business, you didn't even think about it. It was just these things happen to keep a business running, and they're doing it the way they should be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that was always the thing that I just ignored it, and I could go on with my job and I let them do their job, and that's it. But then after I started doing what I'm doing right now, it's only I realized, wait a second, I'm actually dependent on them to make sure, one, they are running the company ethically, sustainably, responsibly, all these things.
Yeah.
But also, while they're doing that, it means that I have a job as well.
Right.
And I never really thought about it until after I started running my own business, because yourself, it's like you don't really think about running the business when you're an employee, really.
Absolutely. No, I mean, paychecks, I mean, most of the time the paycheck's going to clear the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's going to be there unless you get fired.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few people I've met entrepreneurial that have worked for companies. They're like, maybe payroll will clear, maybe it won't. But most of the time, you can pretty much rest assured paycheck's going to clear the bank.
Yeah, for me, in my experience, I've never been with a company that didn't pay on time. So
right.
I was fine. I was lucky. It was fine. There was no financial problems. They were fair in terms of paying on time.
Right.
So I was lucky with that.
Was it a control thing then for you? I mean, going out on your own, I again, I remember a bit of the story of why you did it, but was some part of it just the ability to have that control over things?
There was an element of that. It's about controlling, the cliche of controlling your own destiny, all these things. I bought into that.
Right.
But at the same time, I also got frustrated about not being able to express in a way.
I remember that, yeah.
That was the issue that I had with I wanted to do this and the marketing this and being creative in this, but it was just too many bureaucracy, too many red tapes that we had to go over, too many hoops that you have to jump over just to pass this project, for example.
Right.
And when it happened so many times, I got really frustrated, and it just made me realize there got to be a better way than this. And I always thought in my head, if I had control, I know I would be doing this. And I was confident in myself to say that, you know what, if I had control and we did this, I'm confident that it would be successful.
Right.
But it just, something there, it wouldn't let me, whether it's managers or paperwork, whatever.
So share this with you and get your take on it. So one of the survey questions I've asked online of people that have taken it is sort of having them tell me what are the primary drivers or factors in their decision for whatever they do, whether it's to be an employee or be an entrepreneur. And I'll just play a little quick game with you. Can you guess what the top factor is in determining, or driver of interest in choosing a career, whatever path it is. And so it's some of the choices were money, flexibility, schedule, the ability to express yourself, those types of things. Any wild guess which one you think ruled?
First thing I would think of is control.
Yeah, yeah. So it was about the same thing. So it's what you just said, which is why I'm asking the question. It was the top factor. Whether they chose employee or an entrepreneur, didn't matter. It was just when they made a career choice, the top factor in the route they went was the ability to express themselves.
Sure.
Not money.
Not money. I mean,
Not
I
money.
think
Not money.
if you're in it for the money, you're in the wrong job. You're in the
Right.
wrong everything.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
It was money. Now, money was number two. Money was definitely number two.
I'm surprised.
What would you think would have been?
Flexibility. You know that.
Me
You know,
too,
we're
right?
living
Because
in.
there's all kinds of studies have come out that have said that too, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking we're living in an internet age. Everything's online. We can work from wherever we want. For all the parents out there, they have children. It just made sense, and I did not expect money to be second because I hope people don't fall for the Instagram thing that people say, "Oh, look at me, I'm working on the beach and I've got money coming in while I'm in a hammock." It's like, no, man, that can't work. It doesn't work like that. So I'm really surprised that money is up there, number two. Really
Yeah.
surprised.
Now, how does this statement make you feel? The money was number two. Profession and title, like as in recognition and
Wow.
title, never like maybe 10% of respondents. Maybe it was that low. It was a huge disparity in between the ability to express myself, money, and then the bottom just dropped off, and every other factor barely
Wow.
ranked at all. Is that interesting at all?
I'm surprised that there's a big gap.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
not recognition, not I want to be a CEO, I want to be a entrepreneur, none of that.
because I always thought that part of the reason as well is because it's quite trendy now, isn't it, to be an entrepreneur.
That's why I asked the question. Yep, keep going.
So I sometimes I imagine myself, did I jump into that trend because it looks sexy, or did I just get lucky, or just coincidence that it just at the same time? I don't know. I
You know,
really don't know. I can't answer that question because it just happened that at the end of my job, where it was I really wasn't very happy, it was time. And it just happened to be that that time being an entrepreneur is sexy.
right,
So
right. How interesting, right? You just sort of fell into it, but yet it's worked. Obviously, you're doing great, and yet here you are. You know,
I'm 3 years on, touch wood. I'm still doing it. I'm great. I've been profitable since day one.
right?
I am so grateful for that. And that's why I'm telling you, like, number two is money. I'm telling you right now, I'm not exactly earning like a very comfortable living. I'm just more or less covering my bills and I've got a little bit extra. So
Yeah,
it,
but that's so admirable,
and that's it. And I'm not living a comfortable lifestyle. It's only because I have also my wife. She's a full-time employee.
right?
Combined together, it's actually
Okay,
easier.
okay.
Before we got married, I was still doing this, but I lived a simple life. So just to manage my costs. So I didn't have any children. I had a house, but leave the heating off. Don't turn on TV, whatever. Just keep the
Yeah,
cost low.
yep.
That's what I did. So money is just mind-boggling.
It's
Really
not.
is.
It's not a motivator for you personally.
No, no, no,
Clearly,
no, no.
yeah, yeah.
Definitely not. If money was the biggest motivator, I would work in Wall Street
Okay,
or as a
yeah.
stockbroker.
So I wondered if so. Let's talk a little bit about that. 'Cause it goes to another question I'm asking everybody.
Sure.
So clearly, money is not a huge motivator for you, but maybe that ties into this question. Is there an instance where you would go back to the corporate world? Is there an instance where you would consider that? Have considered it? If you've considered it, what would it take for you to do it?
I I at this moment in time, and I told my wife this, I never ever want to do that. I never want to go back to never mind corporate or non-corporate. I never want to go back to being an employee.
Okay, yeah,
I love what I'm doing.
right.
Absolutely love it, and I'm so happy and so grateful that I can say that. Oh, tomorrow's Monday, right? I'm ready. It's like I mean, who says that? Like, I'm excited about Mondays. I'm happy with Mondays here. I've never had that in a job. So for me to go
So
back
good.
to that industry, it would have to be. I always imagined that if I had a family and we were really struggling and I need to support my family and I have children, then okay,
Okay.
I would
Okay.
consider it.
Right.
Um, but
And
I've never really thought
would you
of a
still in
second
that
job.
instance, would you still fight for a great scenario? Maybe it's more flexibility to stay at home. Would you fight for that corner, sort of a partial, like I'll go back as an employee, but I want to keep some of these. Would you fight for that sort of mix benefit?
I would fight for the whole package because
Yeah.
I think I'm a lot more business savvy now. I
Right.
know what I'm talking about. I'm not just your average employee where they just gone through working in the same company for 10 years. I've done everything that's possible. The admin, the marketing, the legal, the technical
Janitor.
website, janitor, cleaning my room and
That's
whatever.
it.
I've done everything. And
Yes.
I know how it works, and we know how it works. Whereas I know that I was looking at some social media feeds of people I used to work with. They don't know how that works. They don't understand that.
Right.
So I feel that if I go back to employee, because of my business experience, I feel like I am better equipped to handle a lot of things.
So the skills you've picked up along the way would make you
Massively.
much more valuable.
Massively. I genuinely believe that. And I
And you
think
don't
because of
believe
that,
you, I sense you don't believe you could have received those skills or learn those skills by staying a true employee.
no way.
Okay.
No way. Unless I had like a side hustle, maybe you get like a taste out of it.
Yeah.
Then you get a taste, but not like full time immersed because you know yourself. This is not something that I just work 9 to 5 and that's it. No, you know,
Right.
I
Right.
I, I, I think about it 24/7. My wife tells me to calm down and sit down, or she forces me to play the PlayStation just to stop me working.
Right.
I mean, I have a rule. I don't work during the weekends in client work. I mean, but I do other work if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Totally get it.
So, so I agree with you. If
And
I
that's not
was an
and
employee,
that's
wouldn't
not a
work.
negative in your mind. You don't see the need to hustle 24/7 as a negative. I sense that you're like, this is just what I have to do for my business and I do it.
Sure, I think it would be negative if you let it consume you too much, and if you are constantly working on client stuff, then yeah, it would be negative.
Yeah.
But over time, you learn, and I learned that okay, if I look after myself better, then my business will perform better.
Yeah.
So that's why in the weekend, if I do work, it will not be client work. It might be around content. It might be just before we had a call. I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a break. I'm watching a video about editing videos.
Yeah.
That's work, but not stressful work, if you know what I mean.
I do. I do.
So
Yeah.
so that's why if you let it consume you, it's a negative thing. But thankfully, over time, being with people in CMA, all these things,
Mhm.
you learn about looking after yourself. You learn about how to be the better version of yourself. Then yeah, it's not a negative thing in my opinion. I feel like I've become a better, not just a better business person, but a better person overall
Okay. I
because
get it. I totally get it.
you absorb all these skills. Time management, productivity, handling people, handling difficult situations. And that's why I go back to what you're saying about as I go back as an employee, I feel like I'd be much more of a valuable employee now than I was when I left 3.5, 4 years ago
Right. For sure.
because of
No,
all that experience.
no doubt. Can I ask, what did you want to be when you were a kid? Do you remember? A lot of people like to ask young kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you remember what you would have answered or know what you would have answered?
No, I'm sure I've said football player, soccer
Yeah.
player.
Yeah, let's get that straight. It's not American football. It's
okay, the right game. I definitely said that. I've always been into sports. I played it a lot, and then I played other sports as well. But I didn't really have a definite like idea of what I wanted to do. It wasn't until just before I went into university that then I thought I actually do want to work in the sports industry.
Uh-huh.
But that could be anything. So
Right.
as long as I'm in the sports industry, I'd be happy.
Right.
And
You're not
I'm
even
not
close.
doing that.
Well, so that's again tying this all together. That's why I asked. So one of the questions I asked was, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" on the
Mhm.
survey, and you will probably not be surprised that virtually everyone was nowhere close to what they said they were going to be when
Good.
they were a kid, right? And so
Yeah.
some of the examples are rather humorous. Anita Lane, who's the first interview I did, she'll be in the book and things. Anita wanted to be a psychologist, which is interesting for a kid to say,
Wow.
right? And
Yeah.
so we delved into that. And Anita's aunt was an amazing professional and psychologist, and Anita
Right.
wanted to be a psychologist. Well, here's the interesting part, and I'm going to spin this a little bit for you too. The skills that a psychologist has to have, Anita is using. She's not a psychologist, but she's using some of the skills a psychologist has to have. She's in the hospitality industry. She
Okay.
runs a chain of privately owned hotels. She helps them grow. She manages the staff. She's a leader. And an interesting thing I will just for conversation's sake share with you is Anita is not an entrepreneur, but when I asked her if she considered herself an entrepreneur, she told me absolutely not. I am an entrepreneur, even though she gets a paycheck from
Okay.
somebody. So I'm curious, much like Anita, all the other people I've talked to in some facet are using some of the skills that intrigued them with what they were going to be when they grew up. Do you think
Mhm.
that's true for you at all? Some of the skills of maybe being um, an athlete of some sort. Do you think it might be a stretch, but do you think some of those skills are skills that you use?
Only from a personal perspective, it's about looking after yourself from a health and well-being perspective. That's the only time where I felt like I'm using that to my advantage now, and I'm still using that today. So
Right.
I'm still loving sport. I love to exercise. I do different things. I still do all of that. So I guess that can have a knock-on effect to your business
Exactly. Well, because
because
you said you're better at what you do because you take care of yourself.
exactly,
So it's
exactly,
interesting how these points that seem to have never have met. I want to be this. I'm not anything close to it.
yeah.
It might be some of the findings I'm getting out of this is it might be it's less about titles and things and it's more about skill sets that people want to implement and use in their life.
But I guess again, we talk about control a lot.
You're right.
You have control over your skill set and where you apply them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were an employee, then it might be not impossible, but it's just you have to navigate through the
What,
HR and all these things and your boss and all these,
yes, you're hitting around it. So what it comes down to for the employees is they're not picking roles where they can implement those skills.
No.
Something happens with employees that doesn't seem to happen with entrepreneurs where they are choosing roles based on the primary factors that they're claiming don't impact them, which is title,
Mm-hmm.
money,
Mm-hmm.
recognition. And I think, I don't want to get too deep in this maybe, but I think some of it's coming from university and what we're all taught. But a lot of what we're seeing with what I see with the employees is they're moving toward these roles that don't allow them to express themselves or use those skills that they've always innately known they were good at and wanted to leverage.
Yeah, yeah.
They go into it for other things. Whereas the entrepreneurs head straight toward those skill sets in some way, in
In
some
some
way.
way.
Isn't that interesting to think about?
Don't forget though that we just talked about it earlier. As an entrepreneur, you are able to apply your skill set where you want it.
Right.
But especially if you're on your own, you also have to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only until maybe you grow or you start outsourcing things,
Yes. Yes.
then you'll be able to focus more on your skill set.
On that
So,
skill. Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
So, yes, I apply my skill in the right places, but I still have to take on maybe even more responsibility
Of course.
as a janitor, as you say. So, I have to do that. I have to do it myself. I can't, I was thinking about it. I'm in my office. I was thinking about putting up curtains on my window because it's getting colder and I want to use it as like a sound absorption.
Of course.
I got to do it myself. I can't call a janitor to do it for me.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's not applying my skill set in the right places, but I have to do it. I have to do it. So that applies to both employee and entrepreneur.
So maybe does the decision come down to when, even though it's selectively using those skill sets, that you get to use them possibly a little bit more freely as an entrepreneur than you do as an employee.
I think you do, especially
Yes.
if you can envision yourself in the future that you know that I don't want to do this forever, but if I can outsource it one day in the future, then great, that's going to happen one day.
Right.
And I think you definitely have control over that. If your business grows, then you can really use your skill because you have the power to outsource the things that you don't want to do, but you can't outsource as an employee.
Yes.
Very rarely that you can outsource as an employee.
Right. No, you have to do it.
You got to do it, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Log your time, right? 8 to 5. I need to know you're here, even if you're goofing off the whole time. I know you're here, and
Yeah.
there's no paying somebody else to do it, right? And
you got to do it. And obviously, you can't escape from your work. If you don't work as an entrepreneur, you don't get paid. But
right.
if you don't work as an employee, you could still get paid at the end of the day. So.
When you knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur, if I remember correctly, there was still a little bit of lag time between when you made that move. You were sort of, yeah. And can you remind me, what was it about that lag time? Was it the timing wasn't right? You didn't have all the skills yet? What was it about sort of that caused you to wait a little bit longer to jump into entrepreneurship? What factors slowed that
A couple of things
down?
was I've never been, and I still don't really encourage being the kind of person who just quit everything and just go for it.
Yes.
So I like to test it, sample it, get a feel of it. So I did that by doing things at home, just see how it works, and learning from other people.
Right.
I joined the local WordPress meetup group and learned from other people there.
Yep.
So it just being around the right people, that was the big part of it as well. Because I knew that it's not going to be that glamorous like Instagram will tell you. It's not
as you said,
like that.
As you said, work from the beach, right?
Right? I mean, come on, that's not how it works.
I'm surprised everyone doesn't work from their laptop in the beach at these days. I mean, there's so many experts out there on Instagram that can help us do that.
I mean, I maybe people thought it's a guaranteed, you're guaranteed to work on the beach.
What do you mean? It's not? I mean, come on.
Not? What are we talking about? I quit my job. I can't get that job back. I've just never been the kind of person who jump in the deep end. I like to dip my toe in the water, get a feel of it, see how it feels, and gradually build myself into it. That was a lag. And then there was the right time to do it, and I took that leap. And that's why I like that use that pool analogy. It's just like it's deep end over there, but I'm gonna go gradually. I put my feet in there and then gradually go in there.
And was that a number of clients thing? Was that a revenue thing? A savings amount? What was there any one particular trigger that when it was time to, okay, no more toe in the water, I'm diving in?
When it was especially at that meetup, but then other places when people asked me for some help.
Right. When you started, you noticed demand for your services. That's when it was.
Yeah. Especially my local network and in terms of SEO, in terms of WordPress, and that was my thing. And it just made sense for me to be around the right community. And then I got a feeling that, people actually need my help more and more and more.
Right. So you knew you had that skill set, but it was sort of waiting for that validation for the demand from other people.
Pretty much.
I know I'm good at this. But people now want me, not my company I was doing this at. They want me to do this.
Rather than I have to chase all the time.
Right.
So I was lucky. I know I'm lucky. I mean, I know people say you make your own luck because I made it happen by being in the right place.
Right.
Totally get that. But at the same time, I appreciate how lucky I am that I didn't have to chase and cold call all these things. So it's just about being in the right place. You sort of stepped out
with business already.
Yeah. I felt like it's like waiting there for me, and I had a little bit of saving so that in case anything goes wrong, I was like, I'm safe for a good few months or something like that.
Right.
So I had that, but it just gut feeling is a funny thing. It's a funny thing when you have that gut feeling. You think something inside me telling me you're ready.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I was still scared, but I was, more ready than. than I would have been if I just decided to jump. So
Right, just randomly go because the
yeah,
internet says you should. Those kinds of
exactly,
things.
exactly. The internet tells you should. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
the internet's like, you should do this.
You
Off
should
I
do it,
go.
man.
Well, he
Look, look
said
at
so.
look at my cash on my bed. I can't stop counting them. It's just oh.
Oh, the images in my head now. Oh boy. Yeah. So, we did talk about a little bit of this when we did your podcast interview, but I'd like to revisit it just real quick. So, what, you've talked about a few. I mean, what are the best parts of working for yourself? We've talked about the ability to express yourself and work on the things you want to work on. That control. Is there any other things that come to mind that you feel like make this whole being the janitor worthwhile? Let's say.
Yeah, I remember there were a few times where there were certain emergencies that I needed to take care of, whether it's a family member's health,
Right.
or needed to be there for them at the last minute, or something came up, or I had a phone call. Literally this morning, I had a phone call from this morning from a family member who is just in distress and needed to talk to me because she just wanted to talk.
Right.
And I was able to just say, okay, I'm gonna stop that, and we talked for like an hour and a half. No way in hell I can do that.
Yeah. No one
at
over
a
your
job,
shoulder. Waiting for you to
right?
clock back in.
Of course not. So I think being there for other people was it really made it easier for me to be there for them. Of course, there's a balance because if you do that all day every day, then
Right. You're
you
not
know
billing.
you're not really doing anything. But people know that.
But you
But I
can make
think
that choice, though. I mean, that, again, we're kind of back to control. You, as an
sure,
entrepreneur, you get to make that choice.
yeah,
I may lose out on revenue, but I'm gonna go on vacation.
yeah.
I'm gonna take this long walk with my wife, but I should be working on this gig. But that's my choice. I'm not getting permission from someone else. It's my
And
choice.
funny that you say vacation because last week I came back from Australia. I was there for 3 weeks.
Oh, how was it?
It was great. No, it was great. I've got like my in-laws live there, and we went to visit them, and we've got a new nephew there. So it's a family time. You want to go
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I'll be honest. I was very reluctant to go
Okay.
because of just my work. I've got things
Business.
to
So
do.
okay.
But I still went. It just I have to plan ahead and work out how am I going to be able to provide for myself, get the income, get my bill paid, all these things. Now, of
Yeah,
course, I'll get a little dip in income, but you said I made that choice,
yeah.
and it was up to me to be able to do that. So, because of talking about other reasons, the benefit of having control is that you can also plan ahead. You can have a backup plan for things that don't work out. I was able to take that work with me, of course, so that I was able to work early in the morning before everyone wakes up in Australia. I was like, right, let me do a few hours of work.
Right.
You know, that all that played a part in what I just said to you about being there for other people because they
It's a
wanted
really
me to
interesting
come there.
thought.
So it's my in-laws, my wife, her parents, my brother-in-law and his wife, and their 9-month-old
Oh,
baby.
they're all there, huh? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Because the in-laws, in terms of brother-in-law, his wife, and baby, they live in Melbourne,
Oh, okay.
whereas the rest of us we live here in Edinburgh. So
Right.
we all went together. We had a few days away somewhere else, but I was able to do that and be there with them, be there for them. I helped them when they needed help. There's a baby there that needed help. There's some kind of like daily routine stuff because there's a baby there and all these things.
Those little things tend to cause that. These daily routines.
It's amazing these little things. How much of like
Speaking of control,
control is gone.
they have complete and utter control over your life. I know. I've been there.
it's
Yeah.
it's interesting, and I think being able to do what I do as an entrepreneur, it allowed me to be there for other people when they need me to be there.
That's
And
that's great. And I'm having to ponder that because really no one's talked about that aspect.
I think that was
Uh,
that was the big one. You talk about what other things like not the normal things.
right.
I'm trying to think, and I know that this morning I had a distressing phone call. It's
Right.
fine. We talked about it. Sometimes someone needs to go to the hospital, and I accompanied them. The holiday. It was a holiday, but it was also kind of being there for them, helping them as well. it just allowed me to be there for my family a lot more, and I like that. I do like that. And we talked about, yes, you would lose money at the end of the day, but you can't put a price on being there for your
So it's
family.
sort of a trade-off, really. It's sort of a trade,
It is a trade-off.
being able to select your own trade-offs.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's you know, I can't imagine if I was an employee, I wouldn't be able to help certain people. I have to try, like, be awkward about, oh, can I take a half day? Oh, can I take an hour off? Oh,
Right,
it just
right.
be so hard to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the big one for me. I think that's a very big one.
That one's great. I'm glad we got to that because no one else has really talked about that aspect of it.
I'm surprised though, because I thought a big part of it, we talk about flexibility a lot,
mhm.
is being able to be there for your children if you're a
Well,
parent.
so yeah, so on that point, I'll pull it up. So of the people I've talked to, I'll share a couple stats with you. So far, over half have been in that 35 to 50 year old range.
Hmm.
Only about 10% are younger, and there's about a third that are actually over 50.
Right.
And then I asked about marriage. 100% of the people that have taken the survey are married. Interesting, because I
Mm.
thought these factors would, and I'm getting to the children aspect. So 67%, 2/3 have children. But yet, to your point, this idea of being there for these people that matter to you has not really come up. I know Anita and I sort of sniffed around it a little bit with her comments about her husband and her kids and things like that, but it didn't seem to come out like your comments about it. So that's a very enlightening thing to think on for me when it comes to, writing more about the topic.
It
Um,
something that I remembered when, like, my wife needed me for something, and I remembered I said to her, I know that we're not living a rich lifestyle, and you know my business is still early and still young, and my income is fine, but it's nothing special.
right?
But then we said to each other that I'm so glad that I'm able to come with you to support you for this hospital appointment or whatever.
Yes,
And we had that. And I needed to be there with her, and I'm glad I could do that.
absolutely.
And I think that's probably, is that number one? Maybe, I don't know. It's close to,
It's
like, the
really
top.
close. Okay, yeah.
You
It's
know,
really
top
close
two,
to that
three. You talk
creativity.
about creativity, control, all these things. It's just being there for your family or important people, but not necessarily financially. It's not
Does it
financially.
does it diminish this point to lump it up all under control again? Does it diminish the value of that to just say this all comes back to control?
Well, it come back to both control and flexibility, doesn't it?
Okay.
It
Yeah.
touches both of them at the same time.
Hmm.
But I think if you ask everyone about their control and flexibility, everyone will have their own reasons on why they want control.
Yeah.
You know, some people might say, "I want control because I want to pursue my dream of doing this, and I can't do it doing this job." That's fine. That's your thing.
Yeah.
But then another person would say, "Control. I want control so that when my child is born in 2 years, plan ahead, a few years ahead, then I'm ready for my child. I'll be there." Yeah, everyone's different.
It's different.
There's no way you can say one type of control, one type of flexibility. I think
Good
you can break it
point.
down so many things.
Well, and I think of my own story. So again, just in full transparency, I mean, I couldn't do what I do with my primary role if it weren't for the flexibility and control I have. And I know it's my career that's allowed me to get to that point. But I mean, I had lunch with a good friend yesterday and he asked me, he said, Jonathan, I'm curious, why haven't you ever gone full entrepreneur? You've got the skills, you've got the contacts, you could do it. And I said, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, Justin, but it's a bit like golden handcuffs. I've got this really comfortable income, this really comfortable benefits, but yet I probably work about 20 hours a week from my house. No one tells me what to do, when to do. I mean, and some of that again is I'm a little bit older than some of you. My career has allowed me to get to that point inside a company. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know it's a unique setup. And I have said to my wife, we talk all the time about how lucky we are because we go mountain bike together in the middle of the day and we go do all these things. And we look at each other and we go, my Lord, this is how is this possible?
Yeah.
But if I were back in my old role, and I actually pursued a role like that not too long ago and changed my mind on it because of what we're talking about, I realized now I'm commuting into an office again every day. I'm going to have employees. and all these things that I just, which is why I left when I was going to be chief executive officer of a financial institution. I just didn't want that stuff. So I have a bit of a unique situation, which is what it's made it, the writing the book a little bit challenging, because when I reflect on my own situation, it's like, well, of course you're saying, you can have the
Yeah,
best of both worlds, because you do, but not many people really get to have that. A lot of people have to kind of make the choice because they're going into a retail office every day and they don't want that life anymore. I get to sit around in my pajamas practically. So it's been
that makes
interesting.
sense.
I love what you say about no one type of control. Really, it just depends on the individual. That's
It
so
really does.
good.
It's even now that just trying to bounce off ideas as well.
Yeah.
Don't forget as well is that I feel like a big part of it will depend on whether you have an online business or an offline business.
Oh yeah. Go more with that. What do you mean?
Well, my cousin has last year or whatever, she opened a cafe, and you can't really escape from that. You got to be there. You got to do the commute.
Yep.
You got to probably wake up at 5 in the morning so that
Yep.
people can have their coffee at
Stay
six
till
o'clock in the
9 at
morning,
night. Yep.
9 at night, closing, clean up, whatever.
Yep.
So again, it does depend on what type of entrepreneur, what type of business you're going to have. Because if you're going to have an online business like we do, we can have that hammock lifestyle if we wanted to.
Right.
In theory, you really could do that. But if you want to open up your own cafe,
Can't do it.
you're not going anywhere.
Can't do it.
You're staying in that place until you are able to afford to have employees and then cleaners and all these things and whatever. Then okay, maybe you can get away for a bit, but
It
you
takes
know
time to get to that point, though.
you still have to get to that
Yeah.
point. And you're talking about you just when you said about I don't have to commute anymore, but then there are entrepreneurs who still have to commute
Yeah. Of course.
if
It
you
just
have a
depends
brick
on
and
the
mortar.
model they've chosen, right?
Exactly.
Now the business you're in, Todd, goodness, directly to your skill set. But was there any part of your election to run your business an online versus offline decision? Since you're bringing this up yourself, do you remember when you decided to do this? Was there any of that debate in your head about, just going to work from home, not a storefront, not a traditional office, none of that kind of stuff?
The only time when I thought it was in the back of my mind, but I wasn't really going to pursue it about, you should have your own offline business doing
Right.
this. The only time I was only thinking about it a tiny bit was when everyone keeps saying to me, oh, you should be a chef. And that's because I love to cook and
Okay.
I've always provided for other people. And when I cook, people are like, they always enjoy it. And that, even at a younger age, I had that knack for it. I had that just something about it that I'm able to make good food and nothing fancy or
All right.
elaborate.
What do you like to make? Come on, put it out there.
Uh,
What do you like to cook?
but it's nothing that is really complicated. It's like
Okay.
if I want to, like there were times where simple things like I made my own bread or I made my own
Oh yeah.
pasta.
So good, I'm sure.
But for me, it's like nothing. It's just normal thing. But then everyone's like, no, this is actually
Yeah,
really good
yeah,
bread. And
I
everyone's
couldn't
like,
do any of that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I never appreciated that. Just it was normal to me. I love to I used to love well I still do like seafood, and I used to make different type of seafood dishes and things like
Oh
that.
man.
And I remember one time, just for fun, and here's what I do for fun. I bought an octopus, squid, and made my own calamari because I just thought it's for fun.
You
It's like
just
I know people don't do that. It's just what I do.
because you could.
I get could and I enjoy it. I'm passionate about. I'm really, really passionate about food. I've got books behind me that just about food, like the food industry and behind the scene. I get
It's your
that
next
passion for
YouTube
that.
channel.
Oh God, one is hard enough, man. One is hard enough.
One is hard enough.
Oh Jesus, I would be a terrible. Oh no, I can't even do that. That's the only time I thought, oh, should I have my own restaurant or cafe or whatever? And people saying, oh, you should. But then
And what stopped you?
because I know about the industry quite well, that it's a very, very stressful job. People fail a lot. You need a huge investment, all these things. That put me off. That put me off. And because I didn't think I was good enough, even though people think I am. And because it's a saturated market and there are people with qualifications, all these things. So all these put me off. and I continue to do what I do online, SEO, all these things.
Right. Is
So
some of that timing based? So I'm sort of, again, trying to tie a few things together here that we're talking about. Is some of that timing based? Because what you made me think of there is you talk about online versus offline, talk about the
mhm,
restaurant business, back in the day, everybody had storefronts, and they were expensive and you paid rent. And is
yeah.
is is some of this growth and interest in entrepreneurship just because the barriers to entry are removed? You can start a business basically with a laptop and offer a consulting service, and suddenly you're in business. Do you think that goes back to what you and I've been joking about this prevalence of interest in entrepreneurship and why more people are an entrepreneur? Yeah,
I think
unequivocally. Yeah.
I think it does help a lot. But then I think we're talking about our own unique situation. I'm just in a unique situation that my job as an employee was an SEO.
Right. Right.
So it's just natural for me to go into that
Right.
compared to a person, let's just say a person who works in a supermarket, but then wants to start selling her own clothes online.
Right. A tangible product. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
that's different as well in terms of well, even if it's not tangible, but you still have to go from a supermarket job to being an online business owner. Completely separate.
Right. So
So
timing too.
yeah, I think the timing for me is very lucky, but still I agree with what you said about that. I think it's a positive and negative, isn't it, about the barrier to entry as an
Right.
entrepreneur because of the internet. I think it's a positive and negative for obvious reasons.
Right. Right.
But I think it has helped me a lot to pave the way to doing what I do right now. Definitely,
For sure.
definitely. I mean, I don't think I'm not sure. You talked about like I don't like to take huge risk and jump in the deep end. I'm not sure if I would ever be comfortable taking, you know, £500,000 worth of loans and whatever to have a restaurant and refurbish it, equipment, staff. Or I don't know if I would do that.
Right. You think you'd still be an employee if that were the case? Like if that were what were available to you?
I think because I mean, obviously it's possible, but I think because in my head I'm thinking that is a lot of barriers. That if I really wanted it, possibly because that's
Right.
what my cousin did.
Okay.
So if I could do it, but then it was so attractive that my barrier to entry was so small that the transition was so smooth that it was a very stress-free process to make that leap. And it just did not cause any stress at all because it
Yeah.
was just a simple
Bear
transition.
with me. I'm gonna keep staying on that. I'm just curious. I mean, do you think if it weren't so stress free, if you had more friction in the process, do you think you would have turned back around, or if you had your crystal ball, do you think you just would have stuck with it and kept going anyways because of these other desires that you had?
I think I would have kept on maybe trying either change employer but doing the same job.
Okay.
I think I would have done it because that's what I did after one
Where
job.
you
I was
had
like,
more
oh,
control, maybe.
maybe,
Yeah.
or something new, something different, or more control, or
Right.
move up the ladder.
Yep.
That's what I wanted at the end of the day. I could move up the ladder. So I would either do that, or I would look for a career change, but still as an employee.
Right. Right.
So
So this is
yeah,
probably the last thing we talk about today, but talk to me about this. You talk about climbing the ladder because the actual working title of the book is The Ladder or the Grind, which is the idea of climbing the corporate ladder or the
hmm
entrepreneurial grind. And
hmm
we've talked about your employee past, but we haven't really talked about whether or not you ever had any desire to climb the corporate ladder. Was there a time in your life where that was something you were focused on, was climbing that corporate ladder inside a company?
definitely.
Yeah.
I wanted to move up the ladder. Definitely.
Because that would do what?
I have always been, and it's in my blood, whatever, always been people who are ambitious or hardworking,
Ah,
or
okay.
it's just in our nature to strive to be the best person that you can be,
Uh-huh.
whether it's a job or not, just anywhere.
Uh-huh.
And I was never ever content. That's why I keep switching. Well, I keep switching, but that's why it wasn't enough. I had to move. It's because I wanted to move forward. The moment I stay still, I get very uncomfortable.
Uh-huh. Sounds familiar.
So I'm sure you can relate.
Just a little. Just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
it's so uncomfortable for me to stay still. So no, I definitely wanted to go up the corporate ladder, even if that company I was working for is not a multi-million pound, 100 employees. Still, I wanted to climb up the ladder.
But it wasn't about the things that came with that advancement. It was more just personal development, improvement,
Definitely,
advancement.
it's not
Okay.
money either. We talked about money before.
Yes.
It
That was my next question because it was trying to tie all this back together. Yeah. So
I mean,
that
I wanted a comfortable living,
right.
but it's not
Right.
about being rich or
Yeah, no, I
having,
totally get it. I mean,
you
if you
know,
look at the studies say once people hit a certain income level, it just stops becoming as important because all their basic needs, basic
covered.
needs are met. So
Yeah, yeah,
there are those who are entirely money focused and there's never enough.
yeah.
But for the most part, people hit a certain limit and they're like, oh, okay, I'm pretty well taken care of. Now it's about these other things.
Sure. Well, I
Yeah. And
definitely
so
agree with that.
for you though, I can see it. It was really just about, um, constant advancement because you strike me as a continuous learner is the thing.
I'm obsessed with learning. Yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Constantly reading, constantly learning, watching things, and put it into action. But as I said to you, if it was about money, I'm in the wrong job.
Right.
Whether as an employee or an entrepreneur, I'm in the wrong job. I'll get better off going working in Wall Street or go to London and work in the Canary Wharf or
Okay.
whatever.
Okay. So I think I may end this here. If you couldn't check these other boxes, would you make it about money? If there was no way, no matter what path you chose, if you couldn't have the creativity, if you couldn't have the flexibility, the ability to take care of people, if you couldn't have all these other things, would you willingly make it about money and go to work on Wall Street and just try and make as much money as you could?
Good question. I think I would do that,
Yep.
but only because I talked earlier about being there for other people.
The money would allow you to be there for other people?
Yes,
Okay.
by providing for them.
Okay.
So I think again, just go back to what I want to do. I get, just want to be there, support other people, helping other
Yep.
people. That's what it is.
Yep.
So if my destiny was the only way you can do that is by being rich, having a lot of money, and if that allows me to then still be there for other people,
Yep.
then okay,
Whatever
I'll
the
do whatever.
vehicle is that lets you accomplish that inner need and drive, you've got sort of hierarchy of which path you would go down, but okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
I
Yep.
think that would make a lot of sense because that is one of the big benefits about working for myself. Yeah, I've got my own personal selfish reasons. I like it. I'm excited. I don't want a job. Blah blah blah. But really, as well as that, it allowed me to be there for other people as well. So if I have to
And
go work in a Canary Wharf and spend money to be able to care for my family members and whatever, then that's how we do it in our family. You just do it.
right.
It's just in
Right.
our nature that you just work your ass off so that you can provide for people around you.
That's so good.
So
That's so good.
yeah,
Man,
I would say that.
uh, that was perfect. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me again. It's great just to see you. I always
How you
love
too.
talking to you and hear how you're doing.